Welcome, everybody. It's Tom Shantz here. Today, we're here to talk with my good friend, Tiger Coll, and we're going to focus on the business of you. This is part of the Spiritual Businessman series. And how you doing, Tiger?
Doing good.
Yeah,
Glad to have me.
great to see you here. Uh, I want to open up with a few remarks. What does business have to do with spirituality? Well, we're all here for opportunity. You've heard us share a lot about the fact that you're a soul, you're here to learn and grow, and you have a unique purpose and thrust. You have inner guidance, and you are free. And I love to share about how I've made this practical, this spiritual awareness. And what I'm really talking about is, my sensitivity. Like some people refer to it as a psychic sensitivity, ESP, those kinds of things. And actually working with our team, our personal team of spiritual helpers. And you'd say, well, are they going to help me get rich? Uh, they could if you listen to them and you find yourself in the right place at the right time. But we'll talk a little bit about that later, and what their purpose is, and also what we're going to cover early into this program is how we see the energy coming up for folks. We're all naturally psychic. In fact, Tiger was raised in an environment where he was allowed his sensitivity to flourish and inner leadership. I knew his dad, and we've been friends for decades. So, anyways, he runs a Way Showers College, which is a college of experience, spiritual experience. It's pretty unique. And without further ado, Tiger, would you like to say hello to everybody and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, my name is Tiger Coll. That's a nickname that I was affectionately given early in my growth. My father and I shared a common first name, so it became kind of normal to do that. And I had a lot of energy running around early and bumping my heads against the wall and stuff. He said, "Wow, that guy's gonna be a real tiger." So that's part of where that came from. Uh, but my purpose in life is to free people. That's what I'm all about. And so how I do that is I help bring together people's energy, their resources, both inner and outer, to help them fulfill their life purpose.
Uh-huh.
And so like you brought up, I've been doing this for a long time. My parents, Dr. Francisco and Maria Coll, were doing this work, kind of pioneering a lot of that stuff early. And I think by the time I was 2 years old, I think I'd been to like 10 or 13 countries or something like that, and
Wow.
there's a picture of me somewhere where as a little toddler, I don't know if those of you know that, we used to fly Pan Am and all that back then, and everybody was in suits. You
Uh-huh.
you had to
Yeah.
you had to dress really nice. Like now, you say they come in there with their pajamas on and stuff like that, barely
Yeah.
have shoes, right? But back then, everybody had suits. So there's a picture of me somewhere as a toddler with a little three-piece suit on,
Oh, geez, isn't that something?
because that was how you do it when you were traveling back then. But the bottom line is, I just was able to be around all that, and they made it a business, right? That
Uh-huh.
was their business. It wasn't just things that were for free, and that was done on purpose because they really believed in helping people. That was their mission, and the energy of it, the philosophy of it was, if there was an energy exchange, we're talking about the being the business of you. If there's an energy exchange between people,
Uh-huh.
then I don't owe you anything and you don't owe me anything. And it's a clean exchange. And so there's no gurus. There's nobody that to come and, tell you what to do. It just becomes something where there's that nice energy exchange. So I can do what I need to do. You can do what you need to do.
Yeah. And as I was sharing earlier, we're all here for opportunity, and we're here to learn and grow. Knowledge becomes wisdom through experience. as you unfold your awareness, you can grow faster. And I know your folks were very those souls that you chose to work with as a young person. They was all about freeing people,
Right.
and inner leadership, self leadership was a
Right.
big part of it. So I've heard this before, and you've shared it. That we have two ways we can learn. It's either through trial and error, or the faith and confidence in others' experiences. And I'd like to share with folks that why I believe that being involved with spiritual things like the Wayshowers College and the kinds of programs that we offer, and being involved with myself as a spiritual businessman, is as you unfold your natural abilities as a soul, and you can tune into your spiritual helpers or your guides. We all have spiritual helpers who are here to help us learn and grow in areas they've already mastered. And I love to say they're 100% positive. They're master souls. This is the highest source that's available to you. And really, they're tailored to what you came to do. So you already chose a custom suit to work with.
That's right.
Bespoke. When you're aware of your inner guidance, it's a little easier to move through the challenges of life and, find positive solutions. And I know that's one thing that's I've really got a lot out of working with the programs that your father pioneered, and a lot of the other folks that worked with him and helped establish those kinds of programs, is that having that inner leadership, that inner trust, that feeling that everything's going to be okay, that inner security is more consistent. Right. I'd have to say that I still come across situations that kind of rattle my cage or stimulate me or, right, test my inner security, you might say. But overall, I move through them faster. Right. So it's through this awareness that, people can learn and grow faster. And one of the things I love to share is sometimes you can turn around, in a not so good experience, or maybe what we would term as a mistake. There's really no mistakes. It's all stepping stones. Is you can turn it into $1 million learning experience. Or at least it has that feeling, and it's better to feel that way than, down in the dumps and stuck. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, is you're very sensitive and you work with literally people around the world in your, business and practice as a spiritual business person. There's a lot of talk that there's going to be some rough traveling up ahead. And then the other thing is the other kind of consistent theme is there's going to be like a new awakening, that there's going to be more folks that are going to start looking spiritually, and instead of the old established patterns or the old sources of information that we've been fed. What would you like to share about that?
All right. One of the things that is important as we get into this area, and this is an important area that we want to talk about because it's going to affect everything and everyone. No one will be left untouched. And that's not negative. It's just part of the situation. So one of the things to just establish is that here in on this planet, in this solar system, this galaxy, we work with rhythms and routines, right? Rhythms and routines. That's all we've got here. Rhythms and routines. Or as someone once well said, is that, the universe is 90% rhythms and routines and 10% special projects. So I'm saying that because, every so many years, we have a drought. Every so many years, we have a flood. Every so many years, we have a kind of a warming thing. Every so many years, we have a cooling thing. And, it's just nothing but rhythms and routines here. And thank goodness for that, because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have the opportunity to have a stable growth and stable opportunity here. Like to have that rhythm and routine, that's a good thing. It's what makes planet Earth the giant and great school that it is.
Right.
If we just had one way and things didn't have that rhythm and routine, it would be different lessons, right?
Mhm.
We wouldn't have such the variety of lessons here, which is such a powerful thing. So the tide comes in, the tide goes out. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. And so just like that in the financial world, we have, bulls and bears and, booms and busts and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just bringing that together because if we're remembering that it's all about that rhythms and routines, there's nothing that can get you or I into worked up.
Or a panic mode or something.
Yeah, or something that's just realizing that's not all part of the bigger picture that we're already in. And so we just happen to be in a time, right? And for those of you who believe this, you chose to be here at this time, right? Meaning that you chose your spiritual helpers, you have a life purpose to being here. This time of being here is unique and it's especially there for you. So not for me or for anyone to start thinking, oh God, woe is me, or why is this happening? No, this is tailored. Just like you use that term, it's like a tailored suit.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any more perfect than this. Okay, so now that I've got a little bit of that preamble,
Well, that's a pretty positive perspective to say that this is all perfect for what we need to learn and grow and be involved with as souls, I guess, in our evolution.
That's right. It's part of what we've come to do.
Might not be comfortable.
Well, we're going to talk about that, right?
Okay.
How do we make it easier? You're bringing up I can learn the easy way or I can learn the hard way, right? And
Right.
the hard way is trial and error, right? The easy way is trust and faith and confidence in
Other people's
experience
Yeah.
and also from guidance, a bigger picture. So we're moving into a time and a cycle where we're shifting from kind of a very high, lots of thoughts, lots of great ideas. I mean, let's face it. I mean, for those of you who all work with these fancy phones and all these things and computers, it's amazing what we have now. When you think about it, we can communicate with people across the world in seconds, and they're almost right in front of you. I mean, it's like
right on
watching this right here, right?
Right on the Zoom or
It's incredible, right?
Google Meet, whatever.
That's right. That's right. And so everything kind of comes into our lap. They deliver it to you, right? And so that's normal. But then after that rhythm and routine, there has to be a restoration into foundations and fundamentals.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, no matter what's going on, you can be assured that where we're heading is toward the reinvigoration of fundamentals and foundations. So everything we're going to move toward, starting now, over the next few years, is going to be a restoration of that, coming back home to the basics, back home to, and we'll talk about specifics and what we're talking about, both personally, business, and social. But bottom line is, if there's a prediction out there, know that we're in that rhythm and routine of where we're shifting from that kind of almost decadence kind of thing back down to we need to come back to our foundations and fundamentals, because when we get too high as a society in our decadence, we lose foundation. We forget what got us there, right?
Right.
So the mass has to go back to that place. So that's what we're moving toward. And if you're armed with knowing that, or we're armed with knowing that, now we can go and move through things easier because we know what's coming. We know what we're moving through. And therefore, okay, I can do it this way, so it's easier for me.
Yeah. And what comes to mind as you share that, the business of me is knowing what my opportunity is,
That's right.
what I'm there for. And to talk in business language a little bit is, a business is an opportunity to have transactions and be of service to lots of people at various levels of consciousness. In fact, we probably get exposed to folks we would never talk to otherwise. Socially, we would not be attracted to them,
That's right.
to, be involved with them in our social or personal, sort of situations. So it's a beautiful opportunity. And of course, as souls rub up against each other, in a sense, this is how we all learn and grow. And, one of the philosophies of, I hate to use the word philosophy, but, I feel this is very true that, here's the kicker. We're already perfect for what we've come to do. Everything's perfect for us. Now, there's not many folks that work from that perspective. They'll talk about the shadow, this and that. And, there's a religious perspective that you're little worms and not worthy. And, and not all religions, there's various interpretations for the feelings
Right.
around spiritual things. So what do you have to say about that?
Service,
That's
being
what I
of
was talking.
service, and an exchange for that service. We call that business.
Right.
But being of service and having an exchange for that service. In other words, I'm going to give this to you and you're going to give me 5 seashells, or I'm going to give you dollars, or what, there's some kind of energy exchange. There's something going back and forth. That throughout history, whether it is the different groups of faith or religions or personal development, however you want to call that, service has always been something that's been discussed, right? It's always been talked about. Service, be of service, help. Now, depending on the group, that can get skewed or out of balance. But the reason why that's there is because exactly what you said. It is the most effective and efficient means to learn and grow spiritually. There's nothing like it. Relationships come close. Having relationships come close because there's so much dynamics, right? But there's nothing in contrast. It's just at its own pedestal that when you're having exchange at service with people, because I have to be willing to put myself out there, be organized in order to get that back and forth with people. And that whole process is what can shape and advance my spiritual growth and opportunity. It advances it so fast in comparison to, say, I'm just staying in my little world and,
my safe little world.
Yeah, my safe thing.
Perceive it to be safe. Comfy.
The bottom line is, and I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and start their own business. I'm just saying that you already are in your own business. You already are a spiritual entrepreneur. You're already doing that. You came in that way, right? You come in alone, you go out alone, right?
Right.
Nobody's going to raise my state of consciousness but me. People can help, but in the end, it's up to me. So you are in the business of you. And once that really hits home, like what does that really mean? And that's what we're going to talk about. What does it really mean to be in the business of me? What does that mean when I interact with people in actual business? What does that mean when I'm having social and we're having fun and, at the bar or wherever, or what does it mean when I'm in my personal, when I'm by myself, I'm just with my helpers? Never once have I left the business of me. In all those situations, I have a constant. You have a constant. You're in the business of you. So everything revolves around that. It's not in a greedy, selfish, me first, me second, me third thing. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that loyalty to yourself so that then I can be loyal to others, right? If I'm of service to myself, then there's no end to how many people I can be of service to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And, I'm sure some of the folks who've listened to us in the past have heard Teresa or myself share that. And yet, for me, what is great about spiritual growth is, every once in a while, I get an aha moment or a realization that, oh, in this particular area, I'm being a little disloyal to myself, or I'm not trusting my true feelings. I'm just going by a programmed reaction or a concept I've been fed that I buy. Because it's the current wisdom, so to speak, even though it's doesn't really work and never did work, and it may seem like it worked in the short term or long term, but uh, so one of the things that really struck me as you were sharing is that we have our true feelings, which are our soul nature, and then we have our intellect, our brain, so to speak, while we're here. And that's how we organize ourselves, and it's interesting. The brain has to be trained. I play the drums, and when I learn a new groove, even though I know many, many drum grooves and lots of beats, it's a little awkward. I have to get the synapses flowing and flying, and it takes a bit of time. So, but the funny thing is we don't take our physical body with us when we pass on. We leave that actually in the ground. So the spiritual part, the feelings that we go through, that desire for me to play the drums and to participate with other people who are musicians and feel those chills when we're all in sync, to me, that's the spiritual part. So, to be organized in life is important. In our society, you have to have a balance between what you desire and what motivates you. That motivating feeling force is really what motivates us, that incentive. And then we have to be organized to know how to move towards it. Right. And then what strikes me about, all the various religions, or like you're saying, the various self-development programs or schools of thought about this or that, and, they're all paths and pathways. And they're really, I like to say, they're just interpretations that my intellect makes on what I'm feeling. So, I was doing I got interested in some research about, the different gospels in the New Testament. Sorry to get into this, folks. Teresa will be bailing out about now, but you stick around. This is good. Where all four gospels say different things, and sometimes they're even contradictory. And then there's other gospels, like Gnostic gospels, and they look at it more from a spiritual point of view. And the thing that struck me about when I was listening to the history of the gospels and who they think might have written something and who the audience was that it's just an interpretation of a feeling. There was a beautiful message shared, and people have interpreted that message different ways. That's our intellect. And to me, that's the environment that we grow up in, our folks. And that's the part that, I'm going to see it one way or another because I grew up in Chicago. I live in the United States. I used to live in Australia. So I have perspectives based on that. And, but really the truth is in my feelings. So I like to look at the commonality. And I guess I brought that up because I'm a big believer, and there's truth in all things, but not one thing has all the truth. And the more that I think as we go through these rough patches, as the tide moves in and out and the challenges show up, let's face it, that's what we're going to be faced with, is some challenges. It's important, to remember that people are going to interpret things, and maybe you can accept others a little bit more easier, when you realize, they just have a different interpretation for what they're feeling. They're feeling they want to be one with all. They feel they are one with all. They do feel that they want, that unity, and that purpose. How they interpret it, and the intellectual organization they, maybe place on top of those feelings or work with. Some of it works good and some of it doesn't work that good, but that's all part of the learning and growing, I suppose.
That's right. So we're
getting deep here, folks.
The big thing is in the end, we're talking about opportunity, but that understanding the distinctions between structures and theories, and then the actual feeling, the core drive of things, right? So that whole thing about, where does science come from? Where does religion come from? That that those basics, I know this is basics, folks, but it's good to recapture it, because remember I brought up about foundations and fundamentals, right?
Right.
If I'm not clear on that, then what happens is the masculine intellect and the feminine feeling, right? And so the intellect must be trained. It has to have training, which is what you said about the drums, right?
Yeah.
And then for my feelings, there needs to be guidance, right? Don't ever try to train my feelings. That's the worst thing to the feminine feeling side. Don't ever try to train it, right? But guide it, channel it, right? Don't ever try to guide your masculine intellect. That's not going to work. It has to have direction and training and purpose, right?
Mm.
So once I understand these basics, then I understand how I can maintain my balance. So, from the intellect, science is born,
Right.
right? Because we want to understand things. Why does this happen? And why does the moon do this? And, all that kind of, but from my feelings, religion comes because I have a need to feel one with all. I have the need to be with my community, to be with people and connection and fellowship, right? And so this is the core and the source of where things are born from the intellectual nature and the feeling nature. And so once you understand you need a balance of those, then as we move forward through any challenges, right? If we're going from a big boom to a bust, or we're going through all the political changes, and it's pretty impressive to see when you take a step back, right? I'm getting off course here a little bit, but when you take a step back and you look at the stuff that's happening,
Hmm.
right? We just haven't seen this level of stuff happening for like hundreds or thousands of years. It's pretty impressive that we have so much happening now. And that's why I was saying it's such a wonderful, tailored situation that not every person, not every soul gets to have that happen right in their lifetime. So for us to
Mm.
have so much going on, it's going to stretch you. It's going to move you forward in a way that others haven't experienced. So that's perfect. So that brings me full circle back to opportunity. So making sure I have balance in this
Hmm.
whole thing, not buying into, not accepting that something's wrong, right?
Right.
Because that's the game. The game is that people are looking for attention, right? They want attention. They want a power, or they want money, or what, and that's fine. We all do some of that, but when people get insecure, they start groping and grasping for those things, right? And so as things change, we're going to experience that in the environment. People are going to get insecure, right?
Right.
If
Hmm.
I mean, obvious, right? If the environment that I'm in is a little bit more chaotic than I'm used to, then I'm going to feel uneasy about that. So that means I'm going to start holding tight on certain things, right? If I'm not aware of that, I'm doing it unconsciously. But once I become, okay, it's a big, oh, I'm feeling this, right? That's what you're bringing up.
Yeah.
I'm feeling this. Okay, great. What is that? What do I need to do about that? Because I don't want to walk around. I don't think anyone wants to walk around being tense all the time, right? It's not healthy. The body doesn't function that way. And I can't get clear communication with my spiritual helpers if I'm tense all the time, right? It's like,
Right.
imagine having a pipe. Like you've probably seen a hose that you hook up to the fire hydrant. It's those flexible cloth hose,
Uh-huh.
right? But when you put the water in it, it expands out, right? Into a hose. Well, imagine taking a rope around that hose and start to constrict it, pull it tight. You wrap it around it and start pulling it tight. Well, it starts taking that big hose and it starts tightening it up, right? Where that knot is.
Hmm.
And so that puts pressure, right? And
Right.
that's what happens to me, to you, when you're tense. That flow of energy, that flow of life, that flow of creativity, that flow of insights starts getting constricted, and it doesn't feel good. So it's very important that I remember those big pictures that you were just sharing earlier about your energy. You're here to learn and grow. You have a unique purpose and plan. You have guidance, and you're free. Those 5 key things that you were sharing about are so critical, so that when I feel that, I go, wait a minute, that's not me.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? Right? So anyway, getting back to that point is, if I remember that, I don't need to get caught up in it. I can actually be part of the solution rather than part of the pollution.
I hope you've enjoyed the episode of Spiritual Businessman with Tom and Tiger Coll today, and look forward to next week will be part 2 of the discussion. To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.